You were the biggest female athlete out there.
Ultimately, I just fell in love with the feeling of skiing. How fast can I go on this course without dying?
I want to go fast. Ricky Bobby, I just want to go fast.
That's hilarious.
Shake a bake.
Picabo Street is an American former World Cup alpine ski racer and Olympic gold medalist. She won the Super G at the 1998 Winter Olympics and the downhill at the 1996 World Championships, along with 3 other Olympic and World Championship medals. Picabo was inducted into the National Ski Hall of Fame in 2004 with major deals with popular brands such as Chapstick and Mountain Dew.
It's like this really rad game of poker, and all the stakes are so high that you only get to play like 5 hands.
How many times do you run it in your head?
Millions. You have to get to a place where you actually feel it. See your name with a big fat number 1 next to it when you cross the finish line, and expect nothing else and settle for nothing else.
When you got everything you wanted, what was on the flip side of that for you?
There are some times I'd give it all away to just be somebody normal.
My intrusive thoughts play out all the time.
Slow the record player down, slow the spoke down, methodically make it be what you want it to be.
Did you recognize that there was a shift that needed to happen in order to win the gold?
There was a shift that I figured out in order to win the silver. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh, I got all this figured out now.
There's so many. I can't even believe I didn't know this.
It's a whole nother level. A whole nother level. A whole nother level.
Picabo, you're one of my all-time favorite people. I feel very blessed to know you, and I'm starting a podcast, and it's called Great Ones. And when I was just thinking about my life, and you were such a big name in my household growing up. My dad was it was Picabo, Picabo, Picabo. So just to give the context to non-skiers in the world, so Picabo won the gold. Was it in '98? So the Olympic gold medal. Was that downhill or was that Super G?
That was in the Super G.
Super G. And then you won the downhill in the World Cup, right?
Right.
Right. And these are just, I mean, you're one of the most interesting people like I've ever met, and just our conversations are pretty incredible. So this is just almost like a blip and like a bullet point, to like who you are as a person.
All
So
right.
it's like, oh, you happen to, do all these cool things, and it's been really interesting I mean, you were literally on every commercial in the like 90s and the early 2000s. It was Picabo, like with your chapstick, right? Was it the chapstick
It
commercial?
was, yes.
And whether there was a bunch of other commercials, but you were nonstop on the television. Yeah. So before we get into all of that, we were just talking about the Gen Zers and how the champagne problems of the world, and how what people really want to be talking about is like, the honest shit, the really authentic shit of, like I feel like shit, or this is what's going on in my life, and this is how I'm feeling, and kind of, we want to go deep. I want to go deep.
Okay. We're gonna go broad and deep.
Yes.
All right, let's do this.
So when you were growing up, what was sort of your big names in the household? Was skiing a big part of your life?
Oh, so I grew up without television. Yeah, so that usually puts people on their heels, and they're like, wait, and they literally, you have to go down this checklist in your head of like, what did you go without? And it's, in some people's cases, almost everything that they identify with as a child. Yeah.
Okay, continue. So, all right, how
Like-
did you
Yes, picture this funny story. It's a game called Headbands, but in Europe, when you don't have the game with you, you just, you find a way to make it work. So you get a little piece of paper, you write a character on it, and then you stick it on your forehead, and we play the makeshift game, right? And we're playing cartoon characters. And
Mhm.
apparently I am Wilma Flintstone. And I can't put together the character that I am on this sticky note. Literally. I mean, all the way down to like I can picture these pearls and I can picture this bun, and like I'm kind of, getting there, but um I'm not actually wrapping my brain around this character and who it could be. All the way
So you
down
have
to where my teammates just stopped the game and they're going like, "You're messing with us right now, right?" And I'm going, I swear I'm not. I really I don't know.
So you were Caddy from Mean Girls when she came from Africa, and her parents were anthropologists, and she had no idea about any television. She's like, and then they turned to her new friend. The Mean Girls are like, she's basically a Martian. So you're coming from like no concept of cartoons, no
Yeah.
concept of pop culture.
Nope.
Um, was it so? Did you have bikes? Was it reading? Did you have a lot of books in the house? I'm assuming you came from hippie parents.
So I had like this hippie marine kind of mix going on in my household. So yeah, there was music happening. There was and it was vinyl records playing like the Beatles and stuff. It was books. It was all of the chores. It was all the house plants, maintaining them, keeping them alive. It was uh, all the stuff growing, the garden and all the other beds growing all of the food that we could grow to eat. It was taking care of the chickens in the coop. It was taking care of whatever kind of hoofed critter we had at the time, and the dogs, and all the other kind of landscape stuff, and just really literally like making home and the property and the home actually work and flow and go was the main objective every day as a family. And then there was the extracurricular life on top of that. And I think that's kind of it at the time we knew nothing different. That's the way we lived our lives. That's the way my parents designed it. And we just knew that we were different and kind of weird. We didn't realize at the time that we were like gaining skills for life that are like priceless now.
Right.
But yeah, we spent our time making life work and go and be sustainable as a
So
family.
so your parents were teaching you about responsibility, and so everything was sort of on your shoulders just from, I'm assuming, like probably like at 5.
Oh
Like
yeah, super early.
were you a latchkey kid?
Yeah, we absolutely it and more so. Yeah, I was like delivering vegetables and swapping milk and vegetables with people in the neighborhood when I was 3 4 years old, for sure. Yeah, we
Oh
were
my
we
God.
were taught how to take care of everything. Yeah, we cutting our own firewood from small little pieces of kindling that were the fire starter all the way up to the big stuff that kept the fire burning, for half of the night.
And
Yeah, and yeah.
when did you start like knowing how to build a fire? Did you know how to shoot guns?
Um, learning how to shoot guns didn't ever happen really until later for me. My dad
Mhm.
was an anti-gun guy, but we were sufficient in being able to run different tools like um, running hose and shovels in the garden.
Wow.
Um, I had little axes that I would cut the little pieces of wood into kindling, that are 3 times the size of your thumb. And those are little fire starters. And you start really early, and you start with little pieces, and you start with a lot of hands-on guidance. And before you know it, you have it down and you're pretty good at it, you know. And then it becomes like just another job after a while. And then it becomes you're really good on the weeks when you're cutting the kindling, because those are often used as what they would call like a switch in the South, but they're what you get spanked with. So you get in trouble and you go get one and hand it to your parents, and you turn around and you get your spankings. And so you don't, break the
Yeah,
rules on those weeks.
It's that generation, totally.
right?
So wait, totally, did you go to a normal school or was it homeschooled? And how did you start jumping into skiing? And did you have friends? Like there's so many. I can't even believe I didn't know this.
I know it's not funny. So yeah, no, I started regular, like, state elementary school when I was 5.5, 6 years old, just like everybody else, and rode the school bus to and from school, and did the whole thing like everybody imagines until I was in ninth grade. And in ninth grade, I started to skiing was obviously something that I was going to do, and I had to start looking at different options. But yeah, the school bus and a long ride and all the dynamics of the social scene and the pecking order and all of the bullying that you see go on in the cyber world now, I watched play out in person on the school bus every day to and from school, and watching the flip in who used to get bullied and who used to be the bullies, and how that's actually flip-flopped today compared to when I grew up, and how it was taken care of has for sure changed. And that's a can of worms. But yeah, so then I fell in love with skiing, which that's a grand old story. My dad and my brother went skiing and left me home with my mom, and I was furious. And when they got home, I was
How old
like,
were you
"Where
at this
were you?"
point?
At this point, I was 5, I think, 5, 6, 5 or 6, and they got home, and I said, "Why didn't I get to go?" And my dad said, "It's too expensive. You don't know how, and you don't have any equipment." And I was like, well, I can fix one of those right now. And I like snuck in my brother's equipment and taught myself how to ski in the backyard. Literally, like no joke, taught myself how to ski in the backyard. Just tenacious, had no idea. Like, let me go check this out. My dad comes out and is like, "What are you doing up there?" And I'm like, "Watch." And I just hopped in, and like, I'm talking like sagebrush powder, like, legit backyard, not your golf course backyard like you see in some of the neighborhoods around here. It was like in the
At
sagebrush.
5, you
Huh?
figured this out. You have no television. You haven't seen anyone ski. You somehow managed to put the equipment on with the boots and the skis.
Yep.
Did the boots even fit?
Oh no, they were my brothers. They were huge. But it didn't matter. I just had to get them like closed enough to not like spit me out. And once I got that cuff closed enough, I could pull it off. But I mean, it was just the idea of I wanted the feeling. I knew it was a sensation I wanted, and I didn't even know. I didn't know that I wanted it, why I wanted it, nothing. I just wanted it. So boom, I
Eh,
was hooked.
wow. And so you had two older brothers?
Now one older brother.
Or what? One older
Yep.
brother.
Yep.
And were they like was it a big skiing family, or was this just more of a hobby?
Okay, so my dad was when my dad got out of the Marines, he was in California. He watched the 1960 Olympics in Squaw Valley, which is now Palisades, Tahoe, and fell in love with skiing during those games. And so when he landed in Sun Valley, skiing was something that was a criteria for him. And he ended up in Sun Valley and learned how to ski up there. And so that's where I obviously grew up and learned how to ski. And he was a fantastic skier. And if I wanted to ski with him, I had to be one too. So I figured out a way to be one.
And was that your way of connecting with your dad? Was that
Oh,
did you have a way of connecting with your dad, or was that the through line?
that was, I mean, other than getting my chores right and doing it right and getting that like aha praise nod, you got this, good job, which was really important to me.
Mhm.
For me, yeah, it was more of like a Dale Earnhardt, and Dale and his dad was like, "Yeah, I see you. We're on the track together," kind of thing. Yeah, that was reality for us for sure.
And so that was more of like a where you guys could connect and bond because and so did you I imagine you just had the utmost respect for your dad. Was he like a hero to you or
Oh yeah, for sure. Growing up, yeah, it was Marine and into martial arts and ran this super, tight household, and we grew our own food and raised some of our own critters to eat, and like just we were self-sufficient. We were good. We were good wherever we went. Dad had us for sure. Yeah. So he was the centerpiece of it all, always.
Wow. And then how did that suddenly start transitioning into something that became this epic big thing in your life? Did you ever expect, was that a goal for you, or did you just love skiing, and how did you transition into ski racing? And was that obviously, if you're living and growing up in Sun Valley, then I imagine all the kids growing up were also big in skiing. So then it just sort of, I imagine, snowballed. I mean, that's where you do it.
Yeah. I was kind of one of those kids that went like, "Oh, look what I've done. I've gone and fallen in love with the rich kid sport, and I'm not a rich kid. And how am I going to find a way around this?" And I was in a pickle literally because I loved it from the get-go. Like I cried my first time up the chairlift because I thought my brother was going to push me off. I wasn't scared of like the ride and of skiing. I was more scared because my brother and I just kind of had this real, I had a tomboy.
Rivalry.
It's definitely a tomboy relationship there for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so from the get go, I fell in love with skiing. I was in control of it. I loved the rush of it. It very seldom felt scary or out of control. Like very, very seldom
Yeah.
felt scary or out of control to me. Honestly, like it probably makes people just wonder, like, what cake I'm sliced from. But it was so natural for me to ski fast and to love skiing the terrain and just light up when I skied it. So yeah, it was home for sure. And then to connect with my family, and my brother and I connected well there as well. And then for sure my dad and I, yeah, and it was right away. The Kinder Cup was the first race I ever saw, and I wasn't in it. And so I was pissed, like, where's my bib? Where's my number? Why am I not racing? What's up? This is my gig. What's happening?
And your brother
And
was
I believe that might have even been like the sorest point
the
of it was
source.
that
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
brother was racing. Yeah. So I had to wait. And I remember literally like this is what a little just punk ass I was on the side of the course, leaning on my poles, watching everybody ski down and professing that, I'm gonna beat you next year and I'm gonna be faster than you next year and I'm gonna beat you next year. And I mean, this is something I've never even done, but I'm so drawn to it that this is my reaction that I'm having to not being in the race. Yeah. So yeah, this festers for an entire season. And then the next year I race and I just annihilate people. I'm like a tiger that was caged from a piece of meat that I had never even tasted before. It was wild. And so when I got out, it was just my thing. I just loved it. And I think by the time I finally got to race, I was so anxious to win and to beat everybody that's where that whole like where did you place on the scoreboard came from. Ultimately I just fell in love with the feeling of skiing and the feeling of going fast and the feeling of owning the snow and kind of like doing this dance with it that was how it was made to go and be. And that was
Wow.
the love affair that I have with skiing, and I still do today. That's what keeps people going out and skiing until they're 100.
It's so true. Yeah, I just kept thinking like I want to go fast. Rick and Bobby, shake and bake. What is
Right.
Tanner? Which one is it? If you ain't first, you're last.
Right.
That's
I
it.
don't know if you've seen that movie. You watch TV now, right? You still have a TV, or
I
you
do.
have a TV now? Okay.
I have a TV now with so much stuff on it. It's difficult to manage. Yeah, it's wild.
It makes me also, when you were saying, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna be number one, it makes me think of just anyone who's great. I think of Andy Roddick when we we had like dated he was like one of my first boyfriends. when I was about 16, and I remember he went to the bathroom or something, and on his desk was a piece of paper, and it said over and over and over and over again, I'm going to be number one. I'm going to be number one in the world. I'm going to be number one in the world.
Yep.
Just, and then it was also, I'm going to win the US Open. I'm going to win the US Open. 16 years old.
Yeah,
And I just remember thinking, I'm like, he's going to do it. And
absolutely.
I listened to Serena Williams and Venus Williams, and they would have the same bravado, and they meant it. There was this conviction. And I think it's something really interesting about manifestation, that you have to be able to see it, or have to be determined. You have to declare it out in the atmosphere. Um, so what was the idea of winning for you? Like, what did that mean? Like, now that you have to break that down, like,
Yeah.
obviously, there's Christy and Bob's, who are my two best friends, who who you've met.
Love,
Uh,
love, love those people. Love those two.
and
Love
they're
those
gonna
two.
be coming on the podcast.
Ooh,
And they talk about how our fantasies are intrinsically linked to our nightmares. So if you
oh,
don't
for sure.
deal with the fantasy of, like, all the things I've ever wanted, like, I wanted to go to Duke on a full ride. I wanted to be top 10 in the country. I wanted to be sponsored by
Mm,
Nike. There was a cost. There was a cost and a sacrifice and somewhat of a nightmare that came with it, which my idea of going to Duke was, it was going to be teammate and camaraderie and family and sisterhood, even though we were number one. And I found when you're dealing with a bunch of number ones and alphas on a team, it is people who are used to doing a single sport, not being on a team situation. It's not what I had in mind. It was not on my, I want to say, it didn't feel as supportive as I had imagined. It felt way more
right.
cutthroat for me.
Yeah.
And it felt, it was really, really challenging. And so I'm curious. So you start winning. You're like, I'm being a badass in the world. And did you have that in mind when you're like, I want to do this, and you were just very clear about, I want to be in the best in the world? And what did that mean for you? Like, what were your fantasies and your nightmares that needed to, I guess, be worked out?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because they go from big to small to big to small to big to small. That's why I like to use the analogy of golf when you talk about kind of setting yourself up, and what you envision for yourself is, you got golf, you got your 18 holes, boom, out there. You got a lot
Hmm.
of shots and a lot of maneuvering that's going to happen along those 18. And you kind
Hmm.
of work your way backwards to this ball right here that's on this tee right in front of you. That's your first shot, and you start maneuvering, and you're going to do small maneuvers and big maneuvers along the way. And you kind of start off on your path, and and get your ducks in a row and get organized for your
Yeah.
journey. Um, and you're gonna deal with a lot of stuff as you go through. And the biggest one for me is who's driving,
Who
right?
was driving the bus?
Who's
Who's
driving,
driving the
right?
bus?
Who's
Like your
driving the
bus?
bus?
Yeah, yeah.
Literally,
Who's driving the
almost,
bus?
right?
Who's
And that
driving this?
comes, and it's a big bus, right? And obviously it comes from inside, just like when you give your dog a command, and it's supposed to be Caesar style of calm and assertive. Well, notice how the calm comes first and the assertive comes second. It doesn't mean that
Mm,
he's saying, like, "Oh, be a pushover," and kind of beg your dog to do what you want. He's saying, like, "No, calm yourself down, and then
mhm,
assertively ask your dog to do what you want it to do." And it's the same thing, right? Get yourself in the right spot to be asking for and making happen what you want to happen. So when you go all the way back to the beginning of what you just talked about, and that is, I want X, Y, and Z to happen in my life. You get to that course and you start thinking about how you're going to pull that off. You can't undress it all in one shot and throw it all up on the board and keep track of it in this big micro way the whole way. You have to kind of get it organized, file it in layers, and then come back at it as you go through, and so that you're constantly in the right place to be able to actually get all the way into. And this is what you guys are going to talk about when when you delve deeper, is you got to get yourself in the right frame of mind in order to be not necessarily just like visualizing and picturing what you want to accomplish and what you want to receive, but you feel it. You have to get to a place where you actually feel it, like to the point where you're emotionally moved to where you cry. You can feel your whole porch levitating off of your house into the quantum realm, and you're going like, you got these like, Star Wars streaks going because somebody hit the whatever that button is you push that makes you go fast. And the whole world streaking by, and you're out there going, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I'll have. So much so that you're feeling it, that getting to a spot where you actually feel it. And that's what everybody, when you look in the sports world, they say, oh, can you visualize yourself winning it? And it's like, the difference between it being able to say yes and no to that is, and you watch athletes, you watch their face when they're asked that question, you can tell, can they feel it? Can they feel themselves there or not? And then if they can't, they start searching for, oh, there's the next layer of my visualizing myself pulling this off is, can I feel this? So what does it actually feel like to cross the finish line, stand up, turn around, going 80 miles an hour, and look at the scoreboard and see what I want to see there? See what I want, see what I expect.
Yeah, I was last night I was watching Breaking Point with all the, top 10 tennis players in the world. It's so good. It's so gripping. And what's more interesting, I don't really follow tennis anymore, even though I used to play and, almost professional. And but what I'm so fascinated by is the psychology, you can see it. You can see the body language. You can see Novak every single time he loses a set. He's not even phased. That motherfucker is just like
He's
he just
moving on.
goes.
He's moved on.
He's moving on.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I remember I used to be when I was a 12-year-old, and there was, for me, what was happening was there was always so much pressure on me, from how I felt kind of with my dad. I felt in order to it felt like life or death. Like with my dad, I felt like in order to get attention, or even my mom, but then I feel like my mom enmeshed some of her dreams and her hopes and a lot of her expectation of what she was putting into that. So it just, instead of being like, hey, I want you to be a functional kid and I want you to learn something from this, like you're playing the hero's journey. How cool is that? Like, and my dad could, he was a top athlete. He was he won the World Cup in rowing. He was a world-class ski racer. So my dad had more, but he was very more detached. And my dad, that was the only way I could get attention. Like suddenly I would be like, Susie, superstar, where my mom, it would be, if I would lose, she's like, oh my God, your ranking's slipping and this is happening. And I'd be like, okay, you know what? I can't. So I feel like there was a lot for me to manage. And so what would happen for me is I would go on the court and I would be really crazy hard on myself, to the point where I'm like, I'm going to be so hard on myself so you don't have to be. So I would make a whole show of it. Like I would break my racket. You see this in Breaking Point so I had to have a psychologist help me link that tennis was life or death, because if I didn't win, it meant no attention. And for children, that means no attention is death. You're abandoned from the tribe, and it literally is survival. Like if you're not getting any attention. And so for me, it was either I was the black sheep and making, going to the principal's office and causing a ruckus, or I was turning myself into a superhero. And I was like, I like this better. But then it just felt like you were constantly walking on a tightrope 10,000 feet above, where any wrong move, you feel like you could die. And so when I was watching Breaking Point, I would say for several years, I got to a point where no matter what, I got to more of Andre Agassi mindset, where he he like used to have a temper. He used to hate tennis. If you read his book, he's just like, I hate tennis. I hate it all.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly he started having the right coaching. He had a better mindset. He grew up and he started to become very grateful. So you couldn't tell if he won or lost. And so I started taking that mentality of being like, all right, you can't figure out if I'm winning or losing. And that was always, you can always tell you can't tell is winning or losing if their body language is like this and they're like, oh, you're like, hey, you're just by the body language, you're losing. It's not happening. So it's like, you have to like, you can turn it around, but you can't. There was a really great quote on this breaking point was you're already dealing with enough. You're already dealing with the pressure, the fans, the sponsorships, the coaches, the other player on the other side. The last thing you need is you going into your head and being like, "Fuck you, you're an idiot. What are you doing?" Ah! Like,
Yep.
so it was really interesting to just see the body language and having just like we were saying earlier with who's driving the bus and having to visualize it. So it's like I could see the psychology of these players. You could see them see it. So when they would see it, they would, this guy who's like, his body language was very different when he was dealing with Novak. And I was like, he might win because just by his body language alone, like just seeing how they behave before. And that was such a, everything, like it was even more so that everything is in the mind. Like everything, I think is also visualization. How often did you visualize that? Like every day and how often would you visualize the course when you were going down it? Would you just do that for hours? Because I know Andre Agassi and Sampras, like when I was growing up, when I was like 12, they were like, they visualize entire matches in their head. So then I heard that no one else was doing it, but then I just started practicing it like as an experiment and it seemed to work. So I would know exactly where I was going to serve, where I was going to hit the ball, where they were going to hit it. I would play like this whole chess game in my head. So tell me about that experience for you.
It's the same thing for sure. Absolutely. Chess reminds me a lot of it. And the thing that's fun, and that I think that's kind of why I like golf and skiing, where you go back and you revisit a place that you've been before and play a course or ski a ski hill you have before. It's the changes that Mother Nature has inflicted on the area that changes how it is every time you go out there, right? So the golf course changes ever so slightly, but it's monumental in some cases, just moving the whole 3 or 4 feet. Whereas sometimes in ski racing, you've got, say, a ton of new snow, and where you can normally ski a berm and you have enough tree height to put a fence up there to keep enough fencing protection to be able to ski that turn. Well, if there's too much snow there, that turn might not be a reality. Well, that whole run could potentially not even be an option to run downhill on that season because Mother Nature, it doesn't all agree. It doesn't all line up. So yeah, those changes are what are so fun to see every year. When you go back, you're like, ooh, let's see how the course has changed. But it's every one of those years that you memorize that course and every little teeny nuance about the course, from sun to shadow to little rolls to sticky snow to slippery snow to how big is this jump, to does this side hill feel like it falls all the way away? Can you keep your hip on it? Like all of the teeny little details for sure. I'll still be like in the shower, a song will come on, and I'll be like, next thing you know, I'm right back there on Cortina, like running that bad boy again, coming off the Teofana shoes, going like,
a song will trigger it. So which song? What song is your song that would trigger you? So you would play this right before the course?
There's different ones that'll trigger you. Like, okay,
oh my God.
And over the course of my career, I'm old, right? So I went from like cassette tapes all the way through to MP3s, all the way through to now. So like literally, I had so many different deliveries of media. So when it came to MP3 stuff, I was less particular about creating a playlist. Whereas when I made a cassette tape, it had to be the exact playlist I wanted with like 3 or 4 songs in a row to get me to a spot where I Believe I Can Fly is like hitting when it's supposed to hit, right?
That
There
was
it
actually a
is.
song for me. That literally was
Yeah.
actually a song for me when I was listening. I actually remember that as well.
And I go for full, like in some cases, full cheese ball, all love, feel it, get into it, own it. Yes, make it
Okay,
happen.
so R. Kelly, I Believe
Yeah.
I Can Fly. Who
Yeah.
else?
So Tupac was another one.
Yes!
Love me some Tupac,
Which
which
Tupac?
I
Wait,
mean, where
Cal
do I get off this white girl from Idaho being like, I like Tupac? It's like, I
Tupac was my
just,
favorite!
I think music was a fueling for me. Music to me is like, uh, who's putting their heart and soul into their music, and do I jive with that? Because my mom's
Yeah.
a musician. Okay, so I think that was the connection that I made with music, because I am
Oh, that's
all over the
amazing.
board
Yeah.
from, from listening to old vinyls of records of my parents, all the way through to music now, and now with my kids' music too. I can listen to whatever. I can get into a lot of it, and I really honestly think it's because I like the music, and I have a very untrained ear. I don't know what the notes are. I know there's all kinds of background behind it. Whatever. I don't care. I just know what I feel.
Wait, so Tupac, I need to know what song because this is important.
Um, that uh,
Changes, changes. California Love.
no, that was the California
Uh,
Love. The California Love one worked for me a bit. There was kind of this walk up, this walk up songish thing about that one, but with the whole, because it's that da da
Dear
da da
Mama,
as it, right? Yes.
Dear Mama. I'm trying to think what else. There was the Phil Collins song that I listened to. I Can Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight. He did. Oh, it's so good.
That one's good, but it's touchy because that one's like humanity, right? That's in that underbelly of like what motivates you. So
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
all
That's true.
it's sketchy. It's in that maybe I might not be looking
Got it. So
to
it's all
peel it this
happy.
deep.
It's all happy.
A
It's all
lot of it is,
positive.
yeah. Macy Gray stuff.
This is some good.
Gabrielle. So the song Dreams by a gal named Gabrielle, out of England, was the song I listened to right before I won my silver medal in Lillehammer. And I actually got to meet her. She brought me on stage. She sang me the song. It was like one of the coolest moments of my life. And she wasn't ever allowed to ski because she was this like music gal from the stage, and wasn't ever allowed to go on the ski trips or whatever. So she thought it was funny that a white American skier was into her tunes. It was pretty funny. Yeah.
That's
Dreams
amazing.
can come true. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I loved that
Dreams
one.
can come true. Na, na,
Look,
na, na, na,
look at
na,
me,
na,
babe. I'm
na,
with
na,
you.
na,
Yeah,
na, na,
exactly.
na.
Butchering
You've got
it,
to be
but love
strong.
you,
Yeah, yeah,
girl.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And she has a lazy eye, so she wears a patch on her eye so that her eye doesn't look weird, and just kind of it leaned in and embraced the whole kind of, gotta roll with it. This is how God made me thing with her eye.
Wow. Okay. So all right. So you win the gold. You win. What was that? So did you won the was it the silver or the bronze first?
Okay, so I first I win a silver medal at the World Championships in 1993 in Morioka Shizukuishi, Japan.
Whoa.
Okay, say that 6 times fast.
Whoa. No.
Right? Yeah. And I loved it. I loved every second of that whole trip. The culture was wafting all around us. I learned all of the green tea
Japan is
stuff, and
amazing.
like loved it. Loved it.
Loved
Kimonos,
it.
hot bath, bring it on. Dug it all. Um, then the next win was the silver at in the Olympics in the downhill. And then the next medals were the World Championship medal in downhill and Super G in Spain.
Wow. And
And
so hold on real quick. The downhill versus the super G. So the downhill is the one that's a really, really fast one, right? You die. You go 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, and you die. The
you
amount of people who I see crash who never ski again. I mean, it's terrifying. And it's amazing to me because my friend who we grew up skiing and she really pursued, we would do super G and slalom and whatever. And then she did downhill. and she was so freaked out that she quit. That's how scary downhill
Yep.
is basically this is the mountain on a double black and you're just going straight down. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The fastest way with the least obstacles. But if you must throw a couple of them in there or leave a couple in, we got it. But yeah, just ridiculous. Just fast, drop in, more air, more of your feet fall away from you and your belly kind of flies up into your throat a little bit, all that. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yep. It is.
What was the first time you did downhill? Was it scary, or do you have? I've heard this before, where it's either somebody, these amazing, the greats of the world have something missing, or they have something added.
The-
Like it's basically like a screw that's missing, or there is a screw that is added. So it's
Ah,
it's like there's something, either it depends. They have an extra
that's
something, right?
interesting. It's an
Does
interesting,
that
yeah.
like the so
It's
it's like in terms of greatness, you have to be a little mad. Like, you
Well,
know what I
yeah,
mean? There
you got to
has to be,
sacrifice here to gain there. Yeah.
yeah.
Something's like, they find with a lot of children today, they're just wired differently. And because they don't fit into what, this normal box, they think, oh, well, they've got a deficit somewhere. It's like, well, yeah, but look at what they've got over here. And so it's all just spread differently for sure. So yeah, I think that the capacity um, to manage something that's that fast and that aggressive and that dangerous for sure. Yeah, it just is how I am and just how I'm wired. So it's not like I can sit here and unpack myself right now and make any sense to anybody other than the other people who I'd be talking to kind of real viscerally, like, okay, and here's this part that makes you grab a gear and piss you off and catch more air on purpose just because you didn't make the turn right there that you wanted. And everybody else's mouth drops and they go, yes, I love that spot. And you want to live there your whole run. And everybody's going, I hope I never see that spot. And, it's just the psychology behind racing at that speed. There's it's funny because you're going faster and it seems like there would be less going on because you're going faster, but there's actually more to break down and talk about at the end of a downhill run than anything else because there is so much going on. It's just happening really fast over the period of a course, and there's a ton of it. Like a ton of it. So it's like you get it all out, you spread it all out, you unpack it, you organize it, and then you pack it all back in and you get it ready. And it reminds me of like when you pack a parachute, stuff has to be right in the right spot when you pack it
Yeah.
all back in there so that when it comes open, it opens in just the right way to where the air catches it all and it all ends up where it's supposed to save your life. Well, it's kind of there's a component of a downhill course that is like that when you're looking at it and you're figuring out how you're going to approach it and the line you're going to take on it. That's part of it is if I hit the fence over there, what'll happen? If I hit it over there, what would happen? If I went off the course over there and got back, what would happen? Like you're case scenarioing the whole run and you're scenarioing it at any point going 80 miles an hour out of control.
So
Ready, go.
intense.
Right? Like, okay, here you get dropped in. Like there's a game my kids play, Fortnite. You get dropped into a certain part of the game and you watch yourself digitally just like, oh, it's like being at the sphere, right? You just drop all the way down to the stage, boom, and there you are in there. And that's kind of almost like what you do in your mind when you're thinking about running a downhill is you do the drone drop visually into this spot and then bam, you run it. You run this section, you come into it, you ski it right, you execute it, then you take all these little notes of how did I get that right? And then you're constantly splicing that together like a big, seamstress trying to pull it all together to where when it's go time, and that's what's so spectacular about go time is you're pulling something together that like it's not like you got to run this under these conditions 67 times like a figure skater. No, these conditions are how they are right now. They will
Right
not
now.
even be the same. They will not be the same
30 seconds from now.
five,
Yeah.
5 seconds from now. They will never be the same as this right now. So it's just a constant adjustment. And that's what makes it so much fun. That's what's so like magnetic about it. That's what you get addicted to, is trying to figure all of that out and
Chess
micromanage it
pieces.
and pull the chess piece together, right? So it's less about, can I beat so-and-so over there from this country, and more about, can I break this thing down and unpack it and repack it in a way that it works for me. And I hope that he or she does the same thing, and everybody arrives in the finish to be able to go have a beer and talk about it. Honestly, is really how it goes down. You know, you don't
Yeah.
want anybody's stuff not working. So that's kind of how running it is. And it's, the stakes are so high, and it's like this really rad game of poker, and all the stakes are so high that you only get to play like 5 hands.
Wow. Hold on. So how many times do you run it in your head? Like
Oh,
so like the
millions.
night before, millions.
Millions.
So the night before. So let's say when you won the silver or the gold, what was happening? What was going through your mind that day, that night, like that morning? And what were you playing? What songs were you playing?
It's funny you bring it up. Okay, so it's funny you bring it up, because the night before I won my first Olympic medal, which was the silver in Lillehammer in the downhill, I was running it in my head and finishing and winning a medal and answering interview questions like over and over and over on this loop in my head, to where I finally reached out to Sean McCann, our sports psych guy, and I said, hey, this feels crazy. Like, I feel like it's this record that's just going, when I'm back around running the same Groundhog Day thing again.
Sounds like the inside of my brain.
Yes, it absolutely is, right? And it's like, oh gosh, like, never mind turn off, just slow down a minute for me real quick. Like, I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round, and I'm just like, wait, I gotta puke. It's gonna get on everybody. Slow it down. And so I'm calling him going, what do I do? Right. And he's going, okay, listen, first of all, he says, what are you envisioning? What are you picturing? Is it negative or positive? And I said, it's all positive. It's all this like, hey, check me out. I just pulled it off. Right. I got this. What do you think of this? And he's going, okay, great. At least like, that's good. This is an easy problem to deal with. And he said, so what your issue is how long it's lasting. And I said, yeah. And he goes, fine, just put a stopwatch on it. You put stopwatches on all kinds of stuff that you do in your life right now.
Right.
You ride the bike for X amount of time. You take a certain amount of runs. This takes a certain amount of time. Like, you got these blocks. So put it on a block and think about it for this long. Set an alarm. When the alarm goes off, it's done.
Who's driving the bus?
Who's driving the bus? And put me in charge of the timeline and of the cycle. And then just slowly slowed it down and got it to where it wasn't running me anymore. It wasn't running the show anymore. I was choosing whether or not I was even on the wheel and on the cycle anymore, or was I already off? How did you turn it off? Just slowly massaging it off. Like, you can't just expect to
just be like, okay, we're done.
It's like when you flip your bike upside down and you're working on it, you get the pedals going real fast and your wheels going real fast. And you're looking at the stick going, I wonder what happens if I stick these in the spokes real fast. Like, will the stick break real quick, or will my bike flip over? Like, one of the others happening here.
My intrusive thoughts play out all the time.
Play out all the time, right?
All the time, constantly.
And this is the same thing that's happening are you on this little one going like, what'll happen to this stick? And there's all these options that could happen to the stick. Well, that's the little loop running going, I could miss out on that turn. I could miss that gate. I could hit that fence. I could get back off that jump. All those scenarios. Or you're big going, well, if I stick it in far enough, the bike will do one full like flip right now. And that's you like completely missing one of the big jumps or something, right? You can make these analogies of how is your brain actually functioning. Well, it's breathe and slow down. Breathe, use your breath, use your mind, slow it all down. Just right. Slow the record player down, slow the spoke down, stop the tire from spinning, and then methodically make it be what you want it to be.
So you would say that breathing for you is probably a way to slow that down, your breath.
For sure. Yeah. Breath was big for me because if I would get all upset and all into it and keep letting myself get all festered up, it's these short, shallow, hot, breathe, you almost breathe fire. And it's almost like and you try to start a fire going, right? That's how you get a fire going. Well, here I am
Oh,
going to get over here going like, well, what do you expect to have happen to yourself? It's called lion breath. It's get yourself fired up and ready to go, right? Well, what's the opposite of that? Slow that shit down, get it in check, and
wow.
boom, right? But early detection and recognition and catch it. Sometimes it goes and it's gone, and you got to come in with like the big fire hoses, emergency style. But if you can catch it early, your breath can keep you out of trouble and keep you in a safe spot and allow you to be stable. And you watch it in different people. Like tennis is a perfect example. Can
Mhm.
you imagine if you were this hothead who needed to freak out like every 3 minutes in tennis? You'd be
You waste
obliterated. There's
so much
no
energy
way
is wasted.
there's
You
no way
can't.
you make one of those 4-hour rounds that we watch where they're just the mind game. Never mind. I mean, the physical, the mental, the emotional drain on those athletes is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And you watch what's going on in the mind, and it's
Everything's in the mind.
that's where the match is happening.
Yep.
That's where the actual match is happening. And when you're an athlete watching another athlete, that's actually what you're watching.
Yeah. Literally, I was watching it last night, the Netflix thing, because there was a Netflix curse that the minute that they're called like, it's the Netflix curse that the minute like some super athlete is on breaking point, they'll lose. And actually there was a
Yeah.
girl, I forget her name, Tanner, who is the girl who won from breaking point? She won the Australian Open, I think. I think she's Russian. But she's a hothead. And I mean, she's very passionate. I absolutely loved her. I loved her journey. I loved her story. And I was just like, stay calm, remember your breath. Like literally that's all you have to do. And I know it's easier said than done, especially when you want it so bad. Like for me now it's like, acting and and sometimes you can get into your own head, or it's like, I remember when I would be auditioning and the nerves would be so much. It's just, and you've like practiced and you rehearsed, and normally it's like the more that I can practice and rehearse, you can kind of overcome those nerves or use the nerves, like especially if it's a really emotional scene, then you can just
Yeah.
like I'm
Channel it.
like, yeah, channel it. I'm like already a raw nerve that I want to cry. But being an athlete, like when you're tight, you can't you
Yep.
can't you can't drop the racket to get under the ball and get spin. And yeah, everything is in the mind. So
It totally is, and it's a fallacy for people to think that like an athlete that is playing at a level like you were just speaking of, um, what's going on in their mind, and to think that they're anywhere remotely close to like these loose lips of let me just shake it out. I'm good. I'm like, no, no. And even some athletes that don't really like show their, let's just for lack of a better term, their true colors, right? Because I mean, you don't work that hard at something without wanting it badly enough to have some like piss and vinegar over it
yeah.
inside, right? Let's just keep that real and straight. So the one that has really um been making me think a lot is uh Alcaraz um
Ah,
breaks his racket couple of like in the US Open.
yep.
And I mean, fierce, like rakes his racket, like
It's hard to come back from that.
the sound of no, but it's full, like he decided, you know what, tea kettle's boiling, taking the lid off, boom. And I mean, just
Oh,
like
then great. Then he had an
wham.
outlet for it.
He
Okay.
was just like, this is coming. Niagara Falls is unleashing right now. I'm blowing. He made a conscious decision to stop building. The volcano was going to be dangerous, and he wasn't going to be
Mm.
able to thrive right below that. Like, the
Mm.
tea kettle is going, and you can hear the lid just like ting 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 ting. He's like, no, boom, this bad boy is blowing off. I am going all the way. Demolishes his racket, gets everything out, stomps over, throw the racket, just tosses the racket as if to say like, done with you, and very calmly unzips his bag, pulls his new racket out, and if you catch him, he like literally goes and like, here's this new racket for a second. He like honors this new racket, and then boom, back to business, back over onto the court to play as if it never happened. And it was just this super great show of, yes, we thrive right there. We are right at that boiling point at all times, ready to explode. And we are functioning that quickly all the time, no matter what sport you're in. And that is recognizable across the board. And it's what we all dig. It's what we all watch. It's what we all is knowing is going on. It's what keeps you watching car racing when they're just going left, just going left, just going left, is waiting for one of them to go left just a little too early and they all catch into each other and crash. And how do they crash? That's what you sit waiting for, right? It's that anxiety. It's why soccer is so much fun, because, and it's actually football with an F, because they almost score all the time and you never know when they're
Yeah.
going to. There's the unpredictability of that, but there's that anxiety of like, almost there, almost there, almost there. Well, tennis for 4.5 hours right there as a tea with the tea kettle about to explode. Yeah, I'm glad he did it and busted his racket like he did, and everybody saw.
Did he win?
It was so matter of fact. I do not know the outcome. I don't even know the outcome. It doesn't matter. The thing to me that's so cool is that he just finally made the decision of, you know what? It's going to be harder to keep myself in check right now
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than it is to just blow, get it all out, regroup and go. And I'm not going to yell at anybody. I'm not going to say, not in Wimbledon.
Yeah.
I can do this, I think. And he does it and he
he
goes on and he plays, and then you wouldn't know it if you hadn't seen it. You wouldn't know it.
I was watching, so my friend, he also had a documentary. I think it was Untold, Breaking Point. So I think that same documentary, and Marty Fish. So Marty Fish and Andy Roddick was also in it. So there I am, by the way, in this documentary, my prom photo with Andy, and I'm like, hello, and then me, like some random, I don't know, like 12-year-old party, and we're dancing like of our childhood, like all these random photos that I was in. But in the documentary, they talk about, you have to be a savage. You have to be a killer. You have to have that killer instinct. And Andy, he had it so clearly. And so in the documentary, he was talking about with Marty, he's like, he's too nice. Like, he has to have a ruthless, you have to be the gladiator in the arena. These are modern day gladiators. So this is just what it is. So it's like, when Serena Williams said she wanted to rip this guy's throat out, I'm like, well, what do you expect? These are modern day gladiators. Yeah, they're not killing people, but it's a version of, killing and destroying somebody on the other side. But, there is this, I know my inner Viking, where it's like I have that part of me as well. And so now I've channeled that into martial arts. And funny enough, I was catching up with Marty, and he's doing the same of like, because it needs a place to live. Like that Viking, that shadow, that savage needs a healthy outlet. And if it doesn't, it can look like, or destroying the racket, or if it's not like channeled properly, it can get up to mayhem. So, so I feel like it's kind of like walking the dog, it's like you have to take, especially if you have like a German Shepherd dog, you gotta take long walks. You gotta like really put it to work. So how was that experience for you? So it sounds like, did you have that killer mentality? And because I know in skiing, it's different because you're sort of more competing against yourself. There isn't like somebody, unless sometimes I know on the courses you have people that you're directly skiing against, but that's not always common. So it's a bit of a different when you have an actual opponent that you're supposed to like beat,
Yeah,
or even like
yeah.
in martial arts where you physically have to like beat
Oh
them.
yeah, hands
Whereas
on, right?
so I feel like there can be more camaraderie. There's more of like at least what I found in skiing is people are less, there's like, it's more of just about yourself in this meditative place. Did you ever how did you balance those two? Did you have more of a savage where like, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna beat you?
Mm-mm.
Or was it just more, I'm going to beat my best self? Like Bodhi, he would either crash or win the race.
Yeah, well, Bodhi had this mentality to him that he was drawn to, like the most intense, scariest, riskiest line you can take on the course, and that's just what he was like completely drawn to, and
Mhm.
literally had to like talk himself back off and away from, because that was him. He was like, "Oh, got it, boom!" He said it would literally shined like the yellow brick road, and was like, "Oh, hey, I got it right." And he'd be, and he could go for it, and he could stick it. He said he between 20 and 70% of the time he could stick it right. So it was a risky it was calculation all the time. It's always a calculation. Every
Wow.
every time as you're prepping for all of it, it's a calculation. Yeah, for so multi multifaceted in there. There's the component of I was friends with everybody that I raced against on the tour. Like we were all up against kind of Mother Nature, this course, and how
Mhm.
we all lined up and maneuvered it, right? So none of us wanted anything to be happening to anybody else. So we wanted each other to stay safe. So that component was there for sure. Then you have your off-season training that you're doing, which is kind of like this secret squirrel science lab thing where you're like, how strong can I get? And, am I in better shape than you?
Were
Then
you
there's the
running up
whole
hills? My dad used to run up the
absolutely.
hills. The running
Yes.
up the hills
Run.
was mountains.
Yes. I used to run up underneath the chairlift, and anything I found under the chairlift was like, yay, I was back when cash was king and people had it in their pockets still. So now you find a card and you're like, it's useless. But you're hoping to find cash. But yeah, we were, how well did my training go in the summertime, and am I better than you, and do I feel like I can beat you? Have I figured out this course faster than you, and can I dial it in and take more risks? It's more of that kind of those calculations. Am I stronger this year, and can I ski this section more confidently, and
Mhm.
therefore carry more speed into that next section, and then that
Mhm.
changes the way you ski that next section, right? So there's so many things that you're thinking about in the off season when you're training to go back and run a course that, and you get, to answer one of your questions earlier, if you're lucky, you get 3 downhill training runs on the course before you get a race run on it. In Super G, you get no training runs. You get one look at it and one race run at it, which makes it a real anomaly. It's a standout discipline. Then there's giant slalom and slalom, which are 2 runs per discipline that make up a time and a score. And each one of those you have to qualify for the first run in order to get a second run. So after the
Mhm.
first run, you have to be top 30 in order to make it for the second run. And then they
Whoa.
flip everybody based on the snow conditions, and it gets real, scientific from there. But yeah, so downhill was like the fun one where you get a few runs at it
The
at
fun one.
least,
The one where you can
right?
die.
Well, of course, yes. You have to the stakes have to be high,
That is so true. Oh my
but
god.
at the
We're
same
gonna
time, there's pulling it all together to make the dance with the mountain the magic, and that's more of it is the dance with the terrain on the mountain. It's magical.
you do all this visualization. You're playing chess pieces in your mind, and then suddenly you win the silver. And then what was the jump? Was there a slight shift of you getting to gold? Like, what did you have to do, and what was the mindset that you had to change in your mind? Like, did you recognize that there was a shift that needed to happen in order to win the gold?
Um, no. So here's what happened is I felt like there was a shift that I figured out in order to win the silver. And when I figured it out, I was like, "Oh, I got all this figured out now."
What
Like
was the
once I
shift?
once the shift was basically that, like I was talking about earlier, literally feeling yourself in the moment.
What did you
Literally feeling
visualize?
yourself in
Were you on the mountain or were you
everything.
on the podium?
Cold, no. Hauling ass down the mountain, wind in your face, cold skin on your face,
Oh, I'm literally
cold
cold.
skin, like cold in your downhill suit, cold on your hands, feeling your skis bouncing, like feeling it, and all the way across the finish line, feeling the snow in the finish, feeling the temperature in the finish, hearing the crowd, seeing the flags wave, turning slowly as you turn in order to get the screen in your visuals, the numbers that you want to see next to your,
Wow.
like, all the way to the tiniest little details of like exactly how you want this to see. And even in the number one, like there's a number next to your name, or it's depending on how they do the screen, you know what you're looking for. You literally know what you're looking for. I remember I was at the World Championships in Morioka Shizukushi, Japan. I had won my silver, and I said to Darren Rolfs, he was in the finish, he was visualizing. He had come down to the spa, and he was sitting there kind of, with this look on his face, and he was grinding around. And I said, "What do you got going on up in there? Any for your thoughts?" And he looked at me and he's like, "I'm just trying to figure out how to get there, man. Just like, how do you get there?" And he just looked at me and was like, how do you get there?" And I said, "You got to get there before you get there."
Act like you've been there before. It's a great
And
Lumineers
it's like,
song.
yeah, you got to put your hands in your pockets, and you got to roll in there like you belong. You got to roll in there like,
Yes.
yeah.
Act like you've been there before. Yep.
I don't even just belong here. I own this, right? It's like, yeah. And so it's that kind of mentality. And then I just simply looked at him and I said, "You have to see it. It's that whole see your name in lights thing. Yeah, see it. See your name with a big fat number one next to it when you cross the finish line, and expect nothing else and settle for nothing else. Period."
I
And I remember,
love
like, as
this.
it came out of my mouth, I was thinking like, oh, that's what I've been doing. Like, you almost, as you coach and mentor, which is I think why a lot of it's happening these days, is as you coach and mentor, you hear yourself discover the things that you've almost naturally or innately been doing, that you figured out on your own, was like this little, this little nutcracker that you cracked open and went like, "Oh, this tastes like this works this way, this helps, this is effective." And you almost didn't know what was happening.
Did
And
anyone
then you go
teach
to,
you this, by the way?
well, not now, no. I mean, sports science has increased exponentially since even my era. Like, no, we were just cracking the nuts open and trying to figure out like how everything works.
How'd you figure this out on your own? I mean, because I figured this out from hearing from other people who had already done it, from my coaches who were like, yo, check it out. I got a page of like, it's like kind of like dealing drugs. Like it was like, yo, psst, I got
No,
some information.
for
Like, it's
me,
like, you
it
might
was a
want to try
feeling.
this. It was
That's funny.
feeling.
No, for me, it was a feeling. It was a feeling that I wanted, and I was going to experience it. And so it was the sled or the bicycle or the motorcycle or the skis or something. It was that feeling. I'm going for that feeling.
So
And
this was
this
your
is how I want it to
intuition.
feel. Yeah.
Your
Well,
intuition led
yeah.
the way.
And this is how I want it to feel. This is how it's going to feel, even to where when you get to the moment, you feel like a puppet on strings, to where you end up calling Sean and going, "Dude, it's like happening again and again and again in my head. It's like happening." And I'm getting to almost like pick the color of the outfit that I'm wearing in this visualization that I'm having at this point. And he's like, "Great, roll with it. Decorate the thing on up. Go for it. Just put a little timeline on it so you don't wear it out. But yeah, make it what you want it to be." And it's getting all the way into actually like feeling it.
You beat the video game. This is like, so it's maybe a simulation or your God source. You tapped in somehow. God was like, "Hey, just do this." And
Yep.
then,
Well, and that's why social media is working so well for everybody, because they can create an emoji, they can create a visual of themselves, put it up on the screen, and actually watch it work and watch it come, what they can visualize it and see it and make it all happen right here, right now.
So you got everything you wanted. So you visualized it. It happened. You win the gold. And then you also win the World Cup. And then what happens? Was it everything you thought it would be?
It was everything you thought it would be, and it's nothing that you thought it would be, and then it's everything else you had no idea it could be. And like, yeah, it's a roller coaster ride that you're constantly trying to decide if you want to like let go and put your hands up and be like, "Woo," like, scream and yell and hope your phone doesn't fall out of your pocket, but go ahead for the arm raise anyway. Or do you want to like, buckle down and study the run for your next lap around so you get it better next time? And it's this around and around on life you go of like, look, how are you riding your life? Are your hands up and, you know, hands up? Or are you all tight and stiff and on one of those kind of orbits? So I
Yeah,
think
you were
for
one of the
me
biggest stars out there. Like it is like in terms of sports, it was like, Federer. Like you were the female like icon athlete. Like the one of the I mean it just is. I know it's weird. You're just my friend Peekaboo, but you also happen to have this like you did it. You wielded it. You
yeah.
wield energy. Like that's what's so amazing. And these are the conversations that we have of, wielding energy and alchemizing. And you managed to do that. So what were the things you didn't expect? So was everything that you thought in more? How is it more? And how is it not the things you expected? Like what was on that ride?
Um So you mentioned it earlier when you're talking about, constantly having to produce your best all the time. It's that tip of the spear, that quest to be at the tip of the spear, on it,
Mhm.
literally like up on it and
Mhm.
and there all the time. And if you're not on there, you haven't slipped far away from it. So it's not a very big journey back to it.
Sure.
And every run, you're trying to find that tip of the spear that you take on a set of skis every single time. And every
Mhm.
time you take that run, you're trying to please your coach and get an attaboy out of him.
Mhm.
Right. It's that cycle of that competitive cycle that you start to identify with. And
Mhm.
like, am I okay if I don't stay right there on that tip of the spear?
Mhm.
Am I still loved? Am I still okay? Am I still gonna make it? Right. So you repeat that kind of rhythm long enough in somebody's life and they've they've got that on board, right? They're identifying with that one. So that one's a tough one. How does that one like parlay into the rest of your life? And how much does it really matter? That's the one, right? You can't just take it and throw it away because it's a lot of your substance, but
Mhm.
how functional or dysfunctional it is. So it's been fun to kind of unpack the journey, if you will, as you get older and you figure out how you live your life and what it all means. Um, there are some times when I tell you right now, I'd throw it all away and give it all away to just be, somebody normal. And
Mhm.
by normal, I mean just, d- had a little more normal path with starting with a regular name. Um, but that's not how it's not how it went for me. So this is
Yeah,
how
but Peekaboo,
this
that
is
like
how
you're once in a lifetime, iconic. You had to be named Peekaboo. I kind of makes sense. Do you know what I'm
it
saying?
does. It
It
does, but
probably
like I'm
spurred you
saying,
forward. It like talk about alchemy. You're like, I'm
it
gonna make
does.
something of myself.
No, there's no choice. There's not even like a choice. It's literally like so it's all so planned for you before you even show up. Like those are the little temper tantrums that you have along the way. When you have a name like this and you feel like you're destined for something, there's times when I've been like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna like squeal the wheel a little bit and see if I can get us spun out, see if I can spin this thing out, or will it stay right on the tracks? Are we on a set of train tracks or rubber wheels or like cable or like what? How
Mhm.
are we hooked in right now? Because this is legitimately like my path. And so there's no escaping it. There's nowhere to run and hide. And some people look and go like, well, what a brat you are. Why would you want to go hide? And it's like, well, I can't ever like get away from the man in the mirror. It's like I'm me all the time, and it's all part of it. My livelihood to support my family is wrapped up in it. Who I am and how I
Mhm.
feel about myself is wrapped up in it. Whether or not I'm a good enough performer, am I smart enough? Have I learned enough? Can I market myself well enough? All this stuff that, you size yourself up all the time. It's part of the identity that you have as a performer. Is somebody who's
Yeah.
constantly dissecting your performance and going, was it good enough? And was it good enough from all of these perspectives? Right, starting with my own, which is really honestly the only one that actually matters and should matter, but
Mhm.
it matters the least when it really comes right down to it for most of us if you talk to us about it. Um, but yeah, how do you let go? How do you just lighten up? How do you just be and be peaceful and have it not really matter? And that's the battle that I'm having right now is you know to how do I just let go and be chill? And if I do let go and just be chill and peaceful and hang out there and grow my own food, am I going to miss the hot spot of the alchemy of like making stuff happen and
But
being
you're a
able to.
wielder. You're a wielder of
Well, and
energy.
that's
It's
what it
sort of
is. It's
like
almost like irresponsible, right? It's like you're running away from your gifts. You can't handle the truth. Like, chicken, get back here. Like the lady who pulled me over, the worst like police officer interaction I've had. Well, you know what? We shouldn't even go down this
No, let's
path.
go.
Never
Let's
mind.
go. Wait, what happened? Where'd it
She
go?
she pulled she pulled me over
I have so many stories for myself as well.
and she's like, I made this sassy comment about I'm just comfortable at 80 or whatever. And she goes, and what is it you do that makes you comfortable at 80 miles an hour? And I
That's
said, oh, I'm a ski racer. Yeah. She goes back to the car, comes back to my car, and is like, I know who you are, good job representing our country, blah, blah, blah. Do me a favor though, and hands me my stuff and goes, set a better example. And I'm just like, oh,
Ricky
right.
Bobby wants to go fast.
She pulled the disappointment card, and I was like, but I just want to break the rules. Yeah,
The-
it was pretty funny. But yeah, she pulled the set a better example card, and I was like, oh, you had to go there.
Man, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
The amount of times I've maybe heard that. But yeah, no, I feel yeah, I feel like, Christy, who we'll get to meet, bring her on the podcast, but we literally, it was really interesting because she brought up, because we talk about, she has an incredible, beautiful marriage and, but she wants to be more further in her career. And we talk about, for me, where it's like, I've been further in my career, but I'm single as fuck. So I'm sorry, but like by choice of wanting to, really choose the right partner for me. So I'm not going to settle. I really have been very intentional about finding the right partner and a right fit. And, but it comes with its challenges. So so those are always our struggles, is like, I'm really single, or, looking for a partner, and like, here's where I fall short, and here's where, and then for her, she's like, we both would hold on to it too tight. And I, in the last couple years, I've been like, bye, bitch. Like, let me show you the door. Like, I'm like, if this is not meant to be, or whatever. And so whereas her, she kind of same thing, where she's just very elegant and, not so bombastic as me, but for her, she's just more, just kind of letting go. And literally, it was yesterday or the day before, where she was just like, I'm great as is. I don't need to be skinnier. I don't need to be perfect. And this is coming from a perfectionist who is a, superstar, written in Sports Illustrated for her soccer, and also an amazing athlete. But she was like, I am great as is. I don't need to be a certain, like, whatever this idea is that, because being really successful is not only having the success and the accolades that you want, but then there's the scrutiny, there's the other, so that you have the fantasy of like, look at me, I'm so famous and I'm so beloved and blah, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
No.
But along with that comes the scrutiny and the nightmare and being like, fuck you, bitch. Like, I don't like you, and like, here's why, because, you're this, you're that, you're da 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 da. Like, let me find all these reasons to whatever. And so that would be the voice in her head. And obviously my own, voice in my head about relationships or whatever that was. And so she's like, I'm great. I don't need to do anything else. So, And it was really important for me to hear that as well at like starting a new venture, doing a podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
feeling vulnerable in this space. And I just, yeah, it's like, okay, because I was like wanting to lose a few pounds, like get back on that, Donna, our medical medium, and just being like, I want to get back on that weight, and then being like, well, I'm 10 pounds heavier and that's okay. Like,
Right?
and I'm just like, I'm
Who
great as
cares?
is. Like,
Yeah.
obviously I have my fighting weight and I have, when I feel at my best, but that doesn't mean like, and it's not, because there's this whole idea of like self-love and you're great as is, where it's without the responsibility. It's just like, do whatever you want and be indulgent. And that's not what I'm saying. Like, it's actually, incorporating self-love, and while you're on the path and while you're trying to be better and while you're trying to aim up, that you're great being on the path and trying to do better each day, and eat just a little bit healthier with all my juices and a thing. This probably has a lot of sugar though. It's the Haley Bieber.
You
Okay,
gotta keep, hey, you gotta keep the front lobe
the
working.
smoothie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened for you when you got everything you wanted? What was on the flip side of that for you? Like, did you feel, did you finally get your father's approval? Did you finally, win his attention? And how did those dynamics change? And yeah, unpack that for me.
It's wild, right? And what goes on inside of your mind when you reach that pinnacle and you have that success, and then the people right closest to you, it is definitely a game changer for sure. And it's instantaneous, like literally instantaneous. There's no denying that. My brother gave me a hug and called me his hero, which and then very quickly salvaged the moment and our relationship and said, but you'll always be my dumb little sister. And I was like, thank you. God, I thought we got blasted into the stratosphere to never return with that hero comment. I was like, whoa, no.
Why was that weird for you?
It was just not a familiar zone. Like, no, if anyone's going to be a hero in this relationship, it's you, first of all. Let's just start there.
Wow.
Right?
Why couldn't you be the hero?
Because I don't know. He's just my big brother. He was just not like you're like, right, I got your back. Let's go. Where are we going? I'm with you. I'm not leading this. He was just the guy that sized it up for me, that then I knew how big I had to go in order to go. Like, I don't know. He was just my barometer.
Did it suddenly feel unsafe? Like when he said that, you're like, I don't know. Where am I? Which land have I landed in?
It's exactly what I said.
People?
This is unfamiliar territory. I don't like it out here. Let's go. Let's go back. Dumb little sister. Here we go. Bring that one on. Yeah. But it does. And it changes relationships forever with people in your lives. And it changes the way that you feel about yourself. And it changes the way you feel about your performance. That performance and any performance moving forward from there. It changes everything, people's expectations the most, for sure. And, that's one area where I like to work with people, is try and you got to get as rock solid and stable as you can in you and who you are, in your self-love, in your program, and your why behind what you're doing. If your why behind what you're doing is strong and sensible and reasonable, you have sustainability there, and you have a stronger platform to be building it all on. Whereas if your why is oscillating in any kind of way, you're in vulnerable territory. So, but yeah, as soon as I won, it was like my brother called me hero. Coaches looked at me differently. Teammates treated me differently. Everybody.
How so?
There was an adoration in people's eyes. There was an admiration. There was a flip in some relationships where it was like, no, you're still the alpha in this relationship. We can't, you can't give that to me. We can't swap coach to athlete wise. For me, it was like, no. You still have to very much so stay in that. You call the shots. You still have the last say. You still have the bottom line on this one. You still have the ultimate shot call.
Yeah.
on how this goes, and that needs to stay in place, right? So there were certain structures, certain parts of the scaffolding that literally kind of like went whoa when
Whoa.
because it's such a level of success with so much magnitude that
You're iconic.
it shakes the whole thing. Then you add the timing, and here's one of the trippiest things that's ever happened to me, and it happened again recently too. Is somebody said, "Congratulations," and I for some reason I want to thank you for your service. And now I'm a very patriotic person, and I take that one very
Like your
seriously.
dad.
So I
Your
was
dad was
like,
a Marine, right?
no, there's some people who've earned that one, and I am not one of them. So thank you very much for that. But no, you're welcome for, winning a couple Olympic medals and representing USA for sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the whole patriotic thank you for your service thing, I don't accept that one at all. I haven't earned that one at all. But I can understand why people have wanted to say it, and it's a timing thing. And it was because those Olympics and that timing was all in and around a war zone. It was wartime.
Mm.
And so we needed that kind of big, bad red, white, and blue, rah, 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 we're tough guys. How do you like us now? Toby
They
Keith
were pushing
style
you really
going
hard.
on. Yeah.
Like for sure.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the Machine, you were the biggest female athlete out there. I think
Yep.
maybe Steffi Graf. Like I'm just trying to think of Monica Seles, and that was like a big, like, she
Yep.
got stabbed. It was, it was an uncertain time. And I think, being in the Olympics, yeah, that makes a lot of sense of like winning gold and
Title.
representing,
Yep.
and what's really interesting is you're just going out and there skiing. You're just skiing down a course. You just won a medal. I know. Look. This whole thing is a simulation. I'm convinced. I'm like, the whole thing is like not even real, but we can get to that later. And my viewers might think I'm nuts, but you get it. Like, you know what I mean? Saying where it's like, this is, there's all these other different realms and everything. And here it is. Everyone made it mean something. The Machine.
Yes.
The Machine made it mean
The meaning
something.
maker.
The
Yep.
PR machine,
Yep.
the commercials, the propaganda of what was centered around you. They used you and your win, and they put it out there where suddenly you're like, wait, I want to take it back. No, I like, so maybe it's like you wanted to take a wrecking ball to whatever that is that you had nothing to do with. You're like, I just want to go fast. You're like, Ricky Bobby, I just want to go fast.
That's hilarious. You're so funny.
Shake a bake. So I wonder, if that was a part of like what you wanted. And so people couldn't help but get caught up in that, I'm sure, where it's like, man, I just want some of that. Like I want, it just goes back to attention. It's like, Dad, do you notice me yet? Like, look, I'm part of a winning team. Like, Dad, or like I imagine the coaches or something. It's like, look, I did something right in my life. It always goes back to Mom and Dad. Did I do something right? And so how did your relationship with your dad change? And, how I know you had some challenging moments with your dad, and, it's been a challenging relationship. So I'm curious what happened after that.
So my dad and I we had the funniest relationship. He was like he was so hard on me, but he believed in me so much too at the same time, right? So both of those were very apparent.
That's awesome.
He pushed me to where he knew I was capable of going, and expected so much, and was kind of on the same page. Like he was kind of the only one brave enough to actually stay there with me, to where, and this one blows people out, but this will kind of just give you a little snippet into our relationship, and the intensity there. When he gave me a hug after I won my silver medal in Lillehammer, he said, nice work, way to go. And then when he got in close enough to where nobody could hear him, he said, it's the wrong color. And I was like, I know, man, I know. I know.
Wow.
But it was that little, like, you know what I mean? It was that language we could speak to one
Tic-tac-sized
another.
comment.
Exactly. And it was just like, I know. And it was his way of just making sure that I was like not getting too comfortable over there in my silver medal seat. He was like, yeah. Enjoy the party and all, but it's just the wrong color. And it's funny because when I stood on the podium that night, and Zeitzinger's flag went up, and I heard the German anthem, and I said to myself, I will never stand on this stage again and hear somebody else's national anthem played for them, not me, not mine.
Wow.
And I said that to me and myself, and that was another little thing that I said to my dad when I gave him a hug. When we all got back home on home soil, I said, you know what happened to me in my belly when we heard, yeah, and he kind of giggled. So we met there on that level, right? Intense human, like met me at the most intense spots and could meet me there. But at the same time, like just as vested, it seemed like in it, right? So he was my biggest distraction because he would get all spun out and get all intense and try and figure out what to do with himself. When it was go time, I at least had an outlet. I could go up and like hammer down and go for producing the
Yep.
performance. I had some control over the outcome. For him, he was vested as much as me in it, but then had to sit there twiddling his thumbs going, I wonder how this is going to turn out. It was just like a, volcano ready to explode. Just like, come on, let's get this show on the road. Like he was up at night, every night. The first thing I did when I crossed the finish line was find my phone and call him and tell him, I made it, I'm done, I'm good, I won again. You can go back to bed.
You
Yeah,
know
so it
what's
was
oh, go
intense.
ahead.
No, it was
Yeah,
intense.
you know what's really interesting? Something I feel like I recently discovered. There's a lot more communication with fans or people who are in your supportive crew, right? So
Yep.
here's what he didn't know or what he tapped into. So this is gonna sound completely unrelated, but I went to the Eddie Redmayne play, and I was watching these performers, and it's the cabaret Autumn. She was like, "Oh my God, they just like give you shots as soon as you walk in," and I'm like, "I'm not drinking," but there was like, "Oh, there's shots." So then I was like,
Yes,
"Oh,
I
that's part of the
am.
performance." It was, so I was like, I completely indulged. Whatever, it's fine. So I'm sitting in the front row. You had to get 2 tickets, and I asked some other friends to come with me, and they were all busy, and they already saw it. So I'm sitting in the front, and I'm by myself, and apparently, I guess they just bring you up on stage. And the whole time, there was moments where I was in such awe, and it felt like a VMA performance. Every single performance, it was one of the
Yeah.
most epic things. And there would be moments when I could suddenly feel the performers be self-conscious. And I was,
Mhm.
suddenly like I could feel what they were feeling, and I was suddenly, and then they were getting really self-conscious, and then I'm like, I'm gonna try this as an experiment. I'm gonna send like good vibes. I'm like, think of
Hey,
this.
you're
Like,
gonna
think of
Joe
like,
Dispenza. Let's
yes.
do
So,
it.
so what I was doing was I was like subliminally sending them and being really focused of being like, I'm very, very intuitive. We'll get to that later, but I feel like I could feel what makes them tick or feel what their trauma is, or I don't know. It's a guess. And so I would literally be like, think of this thought. And I could hear them acting, I could hear them doing the thing and the blah, blah, blah.
Right?
And I was like, I don't believe you. And then they would get even more self-conscious because there's this connection between mirror
Right?
neurons where they can
Uh-huh.
feel the audience. And I'm like, I'm
Yep.
sorry, I'm not being judgmental of you. I just can see the acting. And so I was like, here, think of this, like focus on this. And the minute, like all of a sudden, I'm just thinking of this, of trying to help them. It's kind of the same thing when you're watching like tennis matches and being like, hit here, or, you'd be like, stay positive, you got this. And you're sending subliminal messages
Yep.
literally, when I've played tennis, my teammates would literally do the same thing for me and be focused and be like, and cheer after every point and just subliminally being like, you got this, you got this. So that belief, literally, I would win matches that I would not, like normally I would
Yeah, you
supposed to ever
expect
win.
not to win, yeah.
And so I was just kind of trying this out as an experiment of like sending these subliminal messages like, you got this, you're amazing. Cut to, listen to this. I'm not saying a word. Like I haven't said a word. I'm just like cheering, when they come out, they do a performance. Halfway through intermission, I get brought up on stage. So this whole time I'm sending subliminal happy messages to them, like, think of this, you're amazing. Like, I love you, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, and this
Uh,
is so me and like some other guy of all people in this like 500 seat roundabout thing. I don't know how many, people there are. I get brought up on stage and suddenly I'm like, what am I doing? I'm dancing with all these people like on stage in the cabaret, Eddie Redmayne. And I'm just like, what is happening? And so one of the dancers turns to me and they're like, you're amazing. Oh my God, your energy and blah, 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 blah. So they could feel it. So they could feel
Yeah.
that I was subliminally, like literally the entire time staying focused to try to help them be like, I can see you in your head. Like I'm
You
sending good
got
vibes. I'm
this.
like, think
I'm
of
with
this, think
you.
of that, blah, blah, blah. Like use this for like, this moment to cry. Like think of like this thing in your life. And literally the minute that I would focus on it, then they would suddenly get locked in and they suddenly would be focused and they wouldn't be in their head anymore. And I realize that's such a weird thing to say, but like I think that there's the reason why people feel so invested as fans is because they do feel this connection, this thing that I'm talking about, that there's something that you can like give this your energy to and you can feel it. So do you, when you were, could you feel that? Could you
Oh, for
feel the
sure.
energy of the people?
Yeah, you can for sure feel it. And it's funny because um, at the start, people are allowed to just be kind of like right there. They're just right outside the fence. And so you're getting ready to go and you're just kind of maneuvering in and around everybody. And yeah, you can feel people's fear, you can feel their anxiety, you can feel their nerves for you, um you can feel the different energy, and you can feel it from the different athletes as well, right? It's definitely something that there's certain athletes I've worked with where I've had to work hard to get them to control their sensitivity and how well they can feel other people's energy and
I'm
let it
so
bother them
sensitive. Ooh,
or not.
it's
Yeah, there's a
hard.
lot of yeah, there's a lot
Eddie
of people out
Redmayne,
there.
he's
Yeah,
so like he can block that shit out. I'm like, nothing affects this guy. And then after admission, he's just staring at me like this. He's like
yeah,
creeped on the
I
little
felt
like
it all. Yeah,
he's just
yeah,
because yeah. And then he's like staring at me for like 2 minutes straight. I'm just like, hi, nice to meet
download.
you.
Yeah,
But
download.
he was so unaffected where I could feel the dancers, I could feel the people. Like there was somebody new on stage. I think she was just new to cabaret, and I could feel it. Like I could feel the self-consciousness. And so I was like being like, you
Yeah.
got this, girl, you got this. But yeah, so wait, continue. I interrupted.
No, you're okay. It's an interesting subject for sure because I have been able to feel it myself, and I never wanted anybody to be scared because I felt like if somebody was scared of a downhill course, they were that much closer to crashing and maybe getting hurt, and I didn't want to experience that. Didn't want them to, and so there were times when I was definitely, I literally physically took some girls out to ski and was like, look, like in this situation you have to do this, in this situation you have to do this, let me teach you how to ride a flat ski so that you can glide through this section more quickly, and just give someone a better handle on running speed, because it's a different beast. So yeah, I would do that with my competitors, because for me it was, yeah, everybody wants to win, but it was a matter of like figuring it out. It was a matter of like, you know,
The
getting it
chess.
dialed and figuring it out, and yeah. And so that was always really fun to try and help my teammates for sure, and then my other
Wow.
fellow competitors to try and break it down and get it. There's a difference
You would
between
help
negative.
them? You would
Oh,
help your opponents?
oh, for sure, absolutely, because like
Wow.
if you ask any great champion, if you ask them, if would you rather play the greatest athlete in your sport, you haven't played them ever before, and you have an opportunity to play them, would you rather play them at, they're kind of sort of injured so they're at 75 or 80%, or would you rather
Mm,
wait till they're at 100% and have that match at 100%?
mhm, mhm.
All of them are saying, oh wait, I want you at your best, I want to be at my best, let's get this, let's get this party started at the tippy top, let's get to the tip of the spear together and then see how we can perform. So yeah, you want to know that when you're performing and winning, you're beating people at their best as well,
Right. So
right?
then you
It's
actually are the best.
Yeah, it's the only
It's
thing.
not a forfeit. You're not like, wah, wah.
Yeah, no, there's nothing else that elevates your performance. You are like boom, and right. It's only how the quality of who you beat is the only thing that potentially raises the needle on your performance of how great it was, is the comparison of, like how many World Cups has somebody won in comparison to somebody else's, right?
Mhm.
It's like Lindsay's shooting for Stenmark's record
Lindsey
for,
Vonn?
yeah, for like the last 3 years of her career. She's headed for trying to beat Stenmark's record as being the winningest ever. And without Stenmark's record, you're not able to have a reference and a comparison. Does that make sense?
Mhm, mhm. And did you ever witness any terrible crashes? So you're trying to help people, or did you have any terrible crashes? Did you get injured? I mean, because we're talking about a super dangerous sport, like it's
Yes.
fighting or racing cars and
Yeah.
skiing. Maybe I don't know, like no,
There might be
actually,
a
just shooting
couple.
targets.
I don't
It's
know.
like
Well, we
archery,
could probably land on a couple of other ones, but yeah, no, it's up
football.
there. It's up there for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes, there were some injuries that happened over the course of my career to myself and different athletes that were very memorable, and they left a lasting impression for sure. We had one of the Russian gals had a really, really bad crash in Spain during the World Championships there. And I basically, she couldn't travel for a week or so. And so I hung out with her every afternoon for like a week, just kind of talking her through her injuries and her recovery and how it was all going to be. And um, Florence Masnada dislocated her hip in Kranz.
you're
Um,
amazing, by the way. I love
and it
that. I
was
think that's
a
so cool.
gnarly crash. Thank you. I appreciate it. That was an early crash. I knew that one was coming, so I was on the move before she even did that one. Um, and a dislocation is challenging because your joint line can get hurt to where it's never the same again. So yeah, there were injuries for sure that were scary. There was a lot of Hillary, Lind, and I's relationship changed and went to another level in and around her injury and my reaction to it, and just how bummed I was that she was slated to win a world championship medal and ended up blowing her knee out in House Austria and didn't get to go to
Wow.
the worlds. Um and I was super sad about that. And when I shared that with her, she laughed at me, but it was out of nerves for not ever having a teammate have that kind of empathy or compassion for her, or if they did, never show it. And when I did, she didn't really know what to do with it. So she laughed. And when she laughed, I thought she was laughing at me when actually she was laughing out of nerves. And it took us half a season to figure out that we didn't need to be rolling around with this big, like, East Coast, West Coast, like FU thing going on between us. Like, I don't like you, you don't like me. We're just gonna not talk. We both realized, oh wow, we missed that. We both missed that. And as soon as we figured that out,
Wow.
we were then the ones to beat, because we had said, oh shit, that's not what I meant. And she was like, well, that's not what I meant either. And I was like, you laughed at me. And she was like, because I was nervous and insecure. No one had ever been that cool to me before. And I was like, oh, and there we were in no man's land going, okay, quick, hurry, we got to build a raft, because we just landed in no man's land. We quickly built a raft and made it through the rest of the season. And we went 1-2-1-2 and won the downhill title that year. And really, that's when USA. We never looked back from there. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
that's
was
why.
all that camaraderie and that search for humanity in the middle of the whole thing, right? Who are these people, and what are we doing, and what is this quest that we're on, and what does it mean, and how can we manipulate it?
Yeah, that's why you're one of my favorite all-time people, just because you're so generous. I mean, we have some of the most epic conversations and you always give me so much, but my God, it's just your generosity of spirit, It's just like, ugh, I love you so
I
much.
feel the
Like
same
that's
way. I feel
like
the same way about you.
it's such a beautiful way to look at life. Like, because you're trying to do, this one thing and win. And there's so much more to life. Like, life is so much bigger than this one thing. And you're like, yeah, I want to do this one thing. What was your why? How did you Like, what was your why? By the way, Simon Sinek, who's a friend who hopefully will be on the podcast at some point
Oh,
soon.
that'd be
So
awesome.
I was talking to him about getting him on the podcast, but yeah, his message is very much big on, what is your why?
Yeah.
So what is
So
your why?
for me, my why is figuring the puzzle out. It was always figuring how fast can I go on this course without dying? Yeah, like straight out like that. Then the whole competition thing was, how do I figure out how to get to where I can free up the right to compete against these people at top notch, but not have any hatred or animosity going on back and forth to fuel it. How can I dial in this traveling time zone food culture thing that is mandatory in order to perform well? How do I train as a team and prep and travel and train together as a team, but win and lose separately and keep all that in check? Like just dialing it all in, just getting it all dialed. My why was basically dissecting it and dialing it. And yeah, it was important to win, but honestly, that wasn't the lesson in it for me. When I think back to it, my why has always been get on skis and figure it out, and how fast can I go?
Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby,
Shake and bake.
grab one, baby.
Oh my God. Okay, so your life changes. You win the gold. You're this iconic person. Where is the underbelly of that? How did you where's the underbelly? Because there's always like, the oh my God, you're the face of the whatever. People's view of you is changing. I feel like there's so many stories just from that look.
Yep, there's stories out there. There's people judge you. People think they know you. They think they have the right to now because you've done something that they saw, and because they saw it, now they have the right to like comment on how you are and who you are and what you're wearing and whether or not it's cool, and are you marketable, um and all of it. It's all tied up, right? And so for me, I don't know, I don't judge people,
Yeah.
and I feel like I receive a lot of judgment, and I don't love it. That part's hard for me,
We're both
especially.
polarizing people, I think. I think because, we're big personalities. And so either people really love me. I mean, eventually they get to know me and then I think most people really like me, but sometimes they don't, and that's okay. That's their right. They don't, and I'm like, it's all right. But I feel like I wonder if it's just a lot of having a lot of energy that it can or doing something really great will make people feel less than insecure. It'll bring up all their faults
That
of,
one. That one.
or also you're my hero. I mean, like our other friend who like literally, Stephanie, I think, who was like coming up to you and be like, oh my God, like everyone still knows who you are. Everyone still comes up to you. Like you were a huge figure in so many households in the Northeast and probably out West. But yeah, I imagine just having a lot of energy and being great at anything is going to be very confronting for anyone,
You make
you
people
know?
check themselves for sure. Yeah, you put them on a different kind of spot. Yeah, whether you want to or not, right? Like it's the last place I ever want someone to be, is in an awkward spot going, how am I,
Mhm.
when they're posed with a sizing up with me. It's not a place I ever want anybody to be. I don't want to put them there. I definitely, if I feel like if somebody's there in my presence, I try to change it as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
Like I don't want ever, one of my biggest fears is to have who I am and the God-given gifts I have on board, and the success I've had with them, to get in the way of somebody else feeling okay about themselves. That would be like,
Yeah.
it's literally like worst case scenario for me, right? So I really worry a lot about whether or not people feel okay around me. I don't ever want anybody to feel like they're less than, because they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's been my toughest line. I think my toughest battle to maneuver along the way is um and regardless of how they respond, right? You can, like, somebody can shoot me a hairy eyeball and give me like a what's up bitch thing happening exchange that lets
Mhm.
me know that I've made them just uncomfortable as somebody who's like afraid to come talk to me.
Mhm.
My presence and my level of success has made them that uncomfortable. I don't care how they're responding to it and how I'm picking up on it. There's a shift in the field, right? And so for
Yeah,
me, I try
totally.
I and
And you
if
probably
there's
feel
an
it every single time, right?
all the time, and with people you walk by, like you go to a jazz game, and as you're walking to the game and you're walking by people and people are figuring it out, you have all these different energies flowing around, and you can figure out who was like, "Oh, hell yeah, she's super cool. Right on, you go, girl." Or, "Oh, whoa, what's she doing here?" Or, "Oh, what's she wearing? Hurry quick, look up and down, whatever." Everybody's got their thing, and I just try and roll on, start and finish everything I do with love and pray goodness for everybody and hope for the best, but the judgment that comes along with greatness, I'd give it all up right now in a heartbeat to not have anybody have the opportunity ever again to judge me for any reason. I'd
Don't
give
you
all of it away
Ooh.
right now. To be like, you don't get to judge me, you don't get to judge my hair, my outfit, my kids, my dogs, the car I'm driving, where like I'd give it all away to just be able to walk out in my moo my slippers, and go, "What's up?"
And be a normal person.
And just be like, one of those ones you see the videos of somebody they're just down the street, dancing down the street. They don't care. They got their coffee, they got their paper, they're in their robe. They're just dancing down the street in their neighborhood doing their thing, and people are videoing them from their house going, "I wish I was that happy." And it's like, why can't we be? It's just a choice. Which, I don't mean to like slight people's realities, because we all have a bill or two or 10 or 15 we can't pay, and so let's just live our lives. Um but yeah, it's the judgment is tough, and if it could go away, I think it's getting better. Like, it's getting better and easier for people to express themselves and be accepted for that expression. I do see that moving in a better and healthier direction. It's going to have its pain. It's going to have its
Mhm.
growing pains for sure. People are going to experience, their scary, hateful stuff. Um, but I am hopeful that more people are able to express who they really truly are, because that authenticity and that vulnerability is the only way that we all truly belong, is if we're able to be authentic and real and transparent, and not try and fit in somewhere where we don't belong. And everybody just wants to belong. So fine. So we've got lots of options of places where you belong. Great. Find it.
Yeah.
And
The
then
You
dance.
could dance your moo moo. I mean, I do think it's just interesting because I've had this conversation that anytime you're judging, you're just judging yourself. Like normally I have a lot of admiration. Oh my God. The amount of people that I've gone up to shamelessly.
Oh, me too. Oh, for sure.
James McAvoy just recently.
Yeah.
Oh, you. Oh. So he was a crush of mine for just forever, ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And I mean, he's married. It's and
Yeah.
so I was going. My PR person was sent me to his new movie, and he was going to be there, and so I was running late, and everyone was already in the theater. So
No.
it was just me and him. So
You
just
were
kind of like
you were
right
running
before.
late,
So
really? No. I love
yes.
you. I'm teasing. I
I'm
couldn't
the
I couldn't
worst.
miss it. You flopped it out there.
I'm the worst.
You teed
I'm
it
the
up.
worst. You know what? I mean, look, it's something, it's on that path of, I'm loving myself as is, and also something that I need to work on,
You're
being
an
more punctual.
optimist. You're an
I really
optimist.
am.
You are, you're an optimist.
So
You believe you have more time than you do.
It is my forever problem since I was a child. My
Yeah.
sister and my parents, if they were alive, could tell you. Anyway, so he's there, and I literally like it's just me and him, and so there was kind of like a step and repeat. So I kind of jump in and I just love all his work, and he's just so great. The Last King of Scotland, Atonement. I could go on. He's just So I walk in and I'm just like literally pass by. I'm like, I love your work, and then just go. And then he's like, oh really? And I'm like, I love your work, and I was also in the Marvel, the Marvel universe, and then he was like, really? So suddenly he's leaning in. I have him captivated. He's like, tell me more. And so I'm like, yeah, my character's on the season of Jessica Jones, and she went to jail, spoiler alert. And then he's like, oh, so we're having like a whole bit back and forth. And then I just proceeded to fangirl all over
All
him.
over
Just
him.
all over him. Of like,
Yeah.
Split was amazing. And I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I have incredible friends who've done incredible things. And I'm surrounded by greatness all the time. And I'm just like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I could not get my shit together. Like, I was just so nervous of just like, and he looks like he's got a beard going on. He's like coming off from this movie where he's kind of scraggly and,
Yeah.
still you can feel he's wearing his shadow on his sleeve of playing this
Yep.
really villainous, like, here's Johnny, like Shining. If it's giving Shining. And so I'm kind of still feeling the remnants of his energy a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
like from that. And I'm like, it's all cool. He's so interested to talk to me, and I just can't like suddenly. So I do think, and then I judge myself endlessly, and I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
But here's what was also interesting, because I'm also really sensitive, and because actors and athletes are also very sensitive because they
Yes.
have to be these fine-tuned
Yep.
instruments. And so he comes in to present his film. And so now at least he knows that he's got a super fan just sitting
Yeah,
in
no
the
doubt.
crowd.
Yep.
And what was really interesting, he kept zeroing in to kind of steady himself, because now I could see that he was really nervous and kind of shaking in front of the crowd, because now he's presenting his film. And so he was kind of, he could feel me. I could see him just kind of zero in sometimes and give his attention to kind of like right himself of like, I'm feeling nervous. Let me
Yeah.
steady myself of somebody who's a fan who like
Little
is in
anchor
my
pillar.
corner. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of a cool moment to be like, oh my God, I thought I totally shot myself in the face. And now maybe it won't be so bad like the next time I see him. But I am thinking about this concept of, the people who do something that, you really want to do in life. So I imagine these people who are skiers, or they want to do something great. It's going to be just very confronting. So like for Christy and I, we were chatting about this, that every time, or if my version is, I tend to fangirl. So I tend to have admiration. And sometimes if they're kind of an asshole, like, I don't know, like whoever actor or whatever, I'm like,
that's
they kind
hard.
of suck. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, you're kind of
Yes.
judging. You're like, I'm judging because you're kind of a dick. And then you're like, I don't want to be so harsh. There is this actor who is really going through it in the press right now, and I was actually like a fan, but then I was kind of like, man, you got, she has some, she's got some stuff I think she needs to work on. But then I had this dream, and it was reflecting back to myself, like I could totally see myself in a situation like that, and and I was having like lots of compassion. So it always goes back to, we're always going back to ourselves, and we're always like
Yep.
where we fall short, how like we're just judging ourselves. So if we're judging somebody else, it's really just ourselves. So it always goes back there,
Right?
So
It
like
totally does.
it's never
Yeah.
about you. It's literally never about you. So like you're just a
No.
representation, which is what you were, of this whole machine. So it wasn't just, and I can verify, I mean, I grew up in this, like, unless there's a Mandela effect, but like I was there of,
Right.
I know we can get into that. There's a whole other thing, but
That's a whole other thing.
that's a whole other thing of the simulation and the Mandela effect, and who knows? Like
Right.
apparently, Fruit
Yeah.
of the Loom, that they were saying, no, we never had this icon. Apparently, I don't know. They're saying it's a CIA, like just to see. It's like a, just to see like what
It's an
people have
experiment.
respond,
Yeah.
an experiment, social experiment. We don't know, or maybe it is we have false memories. But the Fruit of the Loom, somebody pulled on a TikTok. No, it did have that little cornucopia thing. because they're saying it didn't. It's like the cornucopia. Anyway,
Yeah.
I digress, but I think when we're judging other people, we're just judging ourselves. And so we're seeing things, like we see in other people, or like where we fall short, or the things that we want and the things that we desire. And, you're like, oh man, how come I can't,
Right. Well, it goes back to that whole visualization thing I was talking about in the very beginning. And it's like, what have you painted out there for yourself as what you want to see and live in? And, you know, uh, there's a football player who has a speech and he talks about glasses, prescription glasses. And he talks about how you go to the optometrist, you get your eyes checked, they make you a set of glasses that have your script in it, and then you put them on, and then boom, it brightens the world to look as good as it can look for you,
Mhm.
and they're your specs, right? And
Mhm.
they pull it off. Well, when you have a really cool idea and you're like, yeah, it's a really great idea, check it out. It's almost like taking your glasses off and being like, here, put these on, check it out. And people put them on and go, I can't see anything out of these. I feel like I got a set of Coke bottles on the bottom of my, on my eyes. Well, that's how hard it is to explain your idea to somebody else, right? So it's how hard it is to change somebody's perspective on how they're looking at something. So that's what everybody's kind of on this game of doing, is like, as we rotate around, we change our perspective on how we look at things.
Mhm.
And the real dysfunction is how we treat one another about those perceptions and the actions of those perceptions that has gotten dysfunctional. It's like, it's not okay to reach across the aisle in DC anymore. Well, that's the whole reason we have two sides of government, is to be able to reach across the aisle and make sure
Yeah.
that everything's covered, right? That we got our ourselves covered all the way. And now it's like all this sketchy, oh, where can you reach across? And it's like, well, everywhere is really what's going to need to happen. Is we're all going to have to be able to reach here, there, and everywhere, and touch it all, and not have it be so taboo and off limits. And it's all of that area in between us being able to see each other's perspectives. That's all that gray area that we all are, lots of matter floating out there, but a lot,
Totally.
right? But a lot less matter than there is space. So let's get about putting stuff in space where it belongs, organizing the matter in space where it belongs, to have this all work for us. That's ultimately what this big goal is in life, is how do we organize the matter that we all are in a way that we're successful and sustainable.
Yeah, we're all each other. I mean, I love this idea that we're all, I mean, human consciousness, I mean, this is working theory, but that we're all each other, like part of God. So we're just in the embodiment of these shells of these bodies, experiencing, having a different human experience, but we're all each other. So you're
Yep.
me, I'm you, but we just happen to be in these different like cocoons, or spaceships, like that we call bodies, and we have to take care of them, we have to maintain them,
Yep.
and we are just a different expression, but come from the we're made in the image of God and the source, or whatever your version of that is. I love the idea of what you're talking about, perspective. And I'm thinking about story. Like, what was the story that you told yourself when you were younger, and how has that story changed?
I think honestly, I've tried to let the story change and everybody's judgment of me affect me as little as possible. Because I've always just kind of had this irreverence, like, yeah, I got this belief in myself of like, I got this, I can go do this, I'm gonna go get this. To the point where I'm like, I got this, I can do better than everybody in here. And it's not that I have something against everybody in here and I'm needing to like be able to do it better. It's that I'm able to sit in a room and recognize, like, I can do this better than everybody in here, or I can learn this more quickly, or I got this. And it's more about how well am I fixed? Can I pull it off? Can I accomplish this? Can I break this whole matter space relationship down and get it right? And that's what I spend my time on. So I think that's why it's easier to not get so caught up in, like, what does it mean to win or lose? That's why when people ask me, oh, how was the Salt Lake Games for you? You got crushed. I'm like, what did I need another medal for? What was
Mm-hmm.
what was another medal in Salt Lake really going to do for me? Right? Let's talk about all the stuff that went well for the people who do win, who do. Like Carol Montier from France won. Well, she had lost a teammate, she had lost a coach. Like, they had some pretty gnarly stuff go on within their country and within their team right before the games here, and her win was magnificent. If you know the details around it, it was amazing, and it was
What
so
were the
much more
details?
appropriate for her. She lost a teammate in Solden in an accident in on the
Wow.
glacier there. Yep, a teammate that she valued tremendously. The whole country did, so that was, they deserved a win. They deserved all of that, and that meant so much more to me. And Carol needed to know that she deserved to win too, because she always felt like she was in somebody else's shadow and wasn't allowed to win, because there was this kind of matriarch thing that went on within the French team. And so all that was happening in the midst of, everybody saying, oh, Picabo Street's the one to win in Salt Lake. And I'm going, actually, when I'm looking at the whole thing, breaking it down cosmically, going, no, this lands on the French, this lands on Motier for sure.
Wow.
And then it does. And I'm going, yes. And everybody's going, wait, you just lost. And I'm like, such a bigger picture.
It's yeah, it's so much
Such
bigger
a
than
bigger
this.
picture. Yeah. Such a bigger
So,
picture.
okay, so the biggest takeaway from having all this expectation was more of the judgment. So that was the nightmare, with the fantasy of all the accolades and the amazing and the access and the Robin Williams story. Hold on, I want to get to that real quick, of you and your story of meeting Robin Williams and having, him come up to you and tell me some of like the highlights of meeting some of like the
Oh,
greats.
I've just met some of the coolest people. I've just said yes to a lot of different cool experiences, and gone and done them, and met Goofy wearing a pair of tennis shoes and a little skirt, and just like had so much fun being free to like experience it all without a whole lot of expectations and a lot of hangups, because I didn't grow up without television, so I didn't have all these characters that I wanted to meet. I didn't have
Mm.
idols in people that I wanted to meet either. So I was really free to just kind of experience what came, and was able to, live not far out past the end of my nose and say, yes, sure, I'll go play in that golf tournament. And yeah, I'll go to the Pediatric AIDS Foundation picnic and meet every famous actor under the sun and get a picture with them all. Yes, I'll see everybody for sure. Yes, I love it. Let me go
Who
do
is your
it. So
favorite?
yeah, super fun. I'm so not a favorites person. I just have
But
feelings,
Robin Williams,
and
wasn't he the most memorable for you?
Robin for me will forever, and not because he passed away. That just made it worse. But for me, he was the most dynamic and interesting, and the one I wanted to get in his head and in his heart, and in him. I wanted to know him more, because he was so intriguing, because he was so interesting, so he was so interested, and back and forth, right? And so he
So
was
he came up
wonderful.
to you. Didn't he just come up to you like peekaboo, right? How did it
There
happen?
were
What is the story?
so there were several times that we
The first time I
met.
met Robin Williams.
The first time I met Robin Williams, he came, and he was very polite. It was a quick meeting. That one was. He was polite. You could tell he was a fan. He had good form on that one. We
Did you
called it.
know who he
We
was?
joke about it. Of course I did.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. At
By
this
then,
point,
yeah.
you did. You had a television. Okay, good.
Yep. At this point. Then the next time, of course, we knew each other at that point, and it was a congratulations on something big. And then the third time I was around him was a little more personal setting. And then the fourth time I was around him was a very, very personal dinner party with some friends. And in that one, he finally got brave enough to do a monologue that he had written about my name in his head.
Oh my
Like
God.
several years earlier. He finally got brave enough to be like, I got this thing that's been brewing in my head for like 3 or 4 years since we met. He's like, I'd love to be able to do it. And I was like, go for it. And so he is, just imagine this. He's a Scottish guy and an Irish guy, playing two characters, and they're both just completely shit-faced drunk. And one of them is trying to explain to the other one that
Her name's
Peekaboo,
Peekaboo.
that Peekaboo is her name. It's not the
Oh, you mean
game.
a
It's an action.
peekaboo.
And the ski, and that I'm a ski racer too, and what that all is, and the whole. And I mean, I'm literally dying, busting a gut. My oblique's about to rip apart by the time he gets done with this monologue, because he's just gone on and on and on with these two drunk guys over my name, and it is built to a place where everybody's like snorting on, like snot on themselves, laughing so hard in the room, because he's just so funny. He's just that funny. And in the freedom of like, there is no, we're not cutting, we don't care, it's just let the film run. He just kept going and kept going and kept going, and it was just so fun. But the thing that was the neatest about him to find out was he was so curious about the world and about cultures and about functionality, that he spent so much time traveling and getting to know cultures and languages and cuisines and religions and spirituality. He would spend time wherever he went and filmed movies. He would, or series or anything, documentaries, he would spend as much time in that region as possible, learning as much as he could about the area. So then when the conversation switches from this funny little, like, thing that he pulls out from his sleeve like a magician every so often, to just rip out this little, like, 5-minute monologue. But when he stops between those and you get to having like this real conversation, he's got the juiciest information at the party about whatever we're talking about, because he's well studied, well read, just like a super cool, interesting human being. Really, really cool, interesting human being. Very, very loving, very kind, and very, very gracious.
You guys had a lot in common, I think. With
I
the
do
amount of
too.
travel, how like curious you guys are, like you want to figure it out, maybe.
Yeah,
like
and I
his
think
is like
at the core of it was this, like,
kindness, your
Yeah.
generosity of spirit. Like
Yep.
you're both very much
Yep.
like that.
Yeah.
So wait,
Am I lovable still? Will I still be lovable if I
Ah.
don't perform well?
So when I think about like, am I enough in all those things, and I think about what you discovered of like your inner child and your femininity that you locked away. So your tomboy self that you felt like you needed to fit in the family to appease your dad and your brother, and competing,
Yep.
being like, I can ski too, like look at me, like it's the same
Right.
attention of like I can do this too, like I want to be included. But then as we do, because I feel like I did the same, where I was a tomboy of Boston was a very masculine town, and you
Yeah.
don't cry, you don't whine, you don't complain, and hey, yeah, fucking shut the fuck up. It's like, hey, it's kind of it's an Irish with some English, it's very, it's a colder, tougher, like it's actually in the cold. It is like Boston is just, it has these
It's
English
gritty.
and Irish influences.
Yeah.
And so you have to be tough. You can't be really sensitive. So I had to, and I was such a sensitive kid, so I had to rip myself apart and then bring back and integrate my femininity much later in life. And that was something you discovered, that you love the color pink, and that you've been bringing and integrating back in your life and your femininity. So how's that journey been?
Well, I had a pink sweater on for this interview, I'll have you know.
Where
And then
is it?
I didn't like it with the curtains behind me, so I changed
Oh.
out of it. Plus the neck just felt a little stuffy, and I'm not
Okay.
quite there yet. It's sweater weather, but
Sweater
I'm
weather.
but I'm gonna battle it a little bit. But yeah. So Yeah, no, I've been wearing you gave me these really cute pink shoes that I just they're fabulous for me, for sure. I try and splash a little pink in everything. Yeah, totally. Um, and I love it, and it's, there's strength there, but more so actually for me is the peace and the femininity that I'm discovering in that um that I actually like more, because I got a lot of tenacious little mini me's. The 12-year-old is pretty badass. 17-year-old is, she's trouble, but she doesn't show up very often. The 23-year-old who got her heart broken is definitely, you know, on guard and ready for whatever. But now I'm just kind of trying to, roll through life and embrace that whole thing of like none of this is mine anyway. I'm just on for the ride.
Yeah.
And even this heart that I have in my chest isn't even mine.
Hmm.
Because if you study the warrior goddess, she says you are the holder and the keeper of the light of love in your heart, and you there's a responsibility that comes with managing that,
Hmm.
and that's what you need to get busy figuring out how to manage. And so when you say where's the underbelly, it's like the underbelly is in the people who want to somehow destroy me and destruct me, um, and inhibit me from doing what I want to do. And the whole reason that I want to
That's
do what I
so
want to do
sad.
is so
That's
that
so
other
scary. You're
people will
destroying
succeed.
good, literal good.
Yeah, in a way, I feel like don't crush me because I just want to use what I've learned to make people's lives better. And if you're
Yeah.
busy judging me and crushing me, that makes it hard or
Harder.
impossible for me to do that.
And how has that been your focus from the transition from skiing so to now? That's been your focus to how can I? It seems like how you were with your teammate of how I can make, she was injured. And you're like, I'm so sorry. She blew out her knee, and you're like, how can I make your life better? You're like being, and then you had this, you guys didn't talk for a while, and then you're like, oh, this is just a miscommunication, but it kind of seems like, you were sending all this like good vibes where people, it's not common in the sports world. It's not, it's a ruthless, vicious, I got to win at all costs, savage. I mean, Andy talked about it. So I think that that's like such a beautiful, unique thing where, yeah, you're wanting to make people's lives better. And I think that that's like a cool thing to transition. Like that's been your focus now. Is that correct?
For sure. Yeah. It's kind of sped up a little bit recently as the kids get older. And again, can kind of focus a little bit on me again,
Uh,
as opposed to just all them. Um, One of the other things that I think is that the landscape for it to be happening a little bit more, um, is the global stage with social media and people having control over their own kind of profiles, if you will, right? It's like you look at some of the athletes that are influencers, with their social media, and the difference that they're making with their messaging is phenomenal. It's better than any company could ever put together. And so there's a lot of movement out there. There's a lot of influence going on, and a lot of people getting freed up to be more themselves and express themselves and kind of fast track through figuring it all out, and be able to be real about owning what's really going on out there with them, within their sport, within their team, within their country, within their whole journey. um, and a lot of us can watch it and be a part of it, and it's the interesting thing that I'm seeing more now, having those platforms out there, is so much more kindness, so much more of a display of kindness, peace, love, joy, kindness, help, um, and less of this me, myself, and I want to
mhm,
shine brighter than you, and more of
mhm,
this like, yeah, me too.
mhm. Yeah, what's interesting about just where we are as a culture, I mean, there's obviously benefits to social media. There's so many, I mean, I feel pretty great about it, like, unless that changes for me, but I feel like, social media is a tool that can be used for good, or for bad. Like, obviously, like, people can be bullied or have like really hateful comments. Um, but what it does like do with the internet. It brings us closer and we get to understand each other more. And there's more, even just watching Breakpoint, I'm like, yeah, this was my life for a hot minute of 10 years. And that's what I was dealing with. They're showing
Yep.
you're pulling back the curtain more and more.
They
And so
see
people
me.
are, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like you're pulling back the curtain on all these things where it's like, hey, I'm not that different than you. I just, it's like you learned how to just wield yourself down a mountain, where it's like going through some gates.
Yep.
By the way, the best lesson of my life was you coaching me. Oh my God, my dad would be like rolling in his grave of happiness. Like literally,
He was.
guys, it was the all-time best lesson ever. Just me and our friend Autumn and a few other gals. You were coaching us and you were just doing what you do. And we were just, and so you were helping me try to be a better skier, which is really cool because I was kind of rusty. I didn't ski for like 15 years because of tennis and acting and blah, blah. And so I was getting back into it. And so you gave me a few pointers that something about a quarter, something like you're leaning forward, but like
Whatever.
really
Let's
lean
not.
forward. What was
Come
it?
on
What'd you
now.
say? What is it? Something.
Let's keep it private. Easy
Okay.
now. We got we
No,
got
but that
our
was
little
really
tricks,
helpful.
girl. We got our
It
tricks.
it
Yes.
felt like I was
Yeah.
really locked into that mountain where I could go
You're up in the
faster
front
and I had
seat.
more
Yeah.
control.
Yeah. You were up in the front seat and in control and in charge of. Yeah. It's either coming at you or you're going at it, and you've got to be going at it. And
Yeah.
what comes with that is speed. And that's why it's complicated, but it's not a big barrier. A lot of people see it as a bigger barrier than it should be. It's not that big a barrier. So I love to take people skiing, and even just in a couple of hours literally change their whole relationship with it that they've had their whole life, because
It's
it doesn't take
life-changing.
long, but it is life-changing to ski
You're
to
life-changing
go
to ski with.
well, thank you. If you put the center of power in the right spot, things
Mhm.
change dramatically, and skiing is no different. And so it's super fun to get people who who know how to harness power, teach them how to do it in skiing too, and watch them. It's so much fun. That's why it was fun watching you, teaching you how to do it, and why you got it so fast, because you were like, oh, here's the power, here's how I get a hold of it, oh, got it, boom. And you were like hugging an exercise ball all the way down the hill, just like owning it, like so strong,
Yeah.
so stable, on such a good platform. And it's a matter of figuring it out, what works for who, and how fast can I figure that out, because I only got so many runs in their legs, because this shit's tiring.
Yeah.
And and I want to get it right, and I want to not have them be scared. The longer somebody's scared and tight and reacting, the harder it is to work with them, right? So the sooner you can get them in control over it. And that's what's super fun. That was the thing that was so fun about skiing, is to control something that seems like it should be out of control, and to help people get to a place where they're doing that same thing. And it's fun because I can translate it from skiing to their lives. Like really quickly, you can take it from the ski lift and the ski hill into your everyday life, into your motherhood, into your relationships. So it's one of the coolest parts about my, being retired now, is just getting to ski with people and have a good time with it. And very quickly, in half a day, not even, change somebody's life like forever. Sometimes I've met people now that I skied with 20-25 years ago that are like, no, it was still today the most impactful day of skiing ever. And that's a gift. Like, I'm not sitting here beating on my chest going like, all right, all great. No, it's a gift that I was given, that I have tried to do my best to utilize and give away as often as I possibly can. It's one of my most favorite things to do in life.
It's the best. Picabo, I love you so much. Thank you
I love
so
you
much.
too.
What a great way to end this our podcast today. I love you. I can't wait to ski with you.
I love you too.
I'm gonna be out there in, I think, December. So
Let's do it.
I would love that. All
Yep,
right.
we go.
Tanner, thank you so much. All right, guys. I'll see you guys soon.